This series now contains over a dozen videos presenting the basic grammatical features of Vulgar Latin and the Romance languages. Each video contained many examples pronounced out loud, but none of them addressed the topic of pronunciation directly. This video finally offers a rough sketch of the pronunciation of Vulgar Latin and early Romance, with some notes on how that pronunciation developed and splintered as Proto-Romance divided into the modern Romance languages. Classical Latin vowels had two values, short and long. The name refers to how long the vowel is held, short a versus long a. You can hear that long vowels are held out longer in time. In Vulgar Latin, the quality of a vowel became a major difference between short and long vowels. Some vowels sounded different, even if they weren't held longer or shorter. Long and short a, but short e. Long e, short o, long o, short u, long u. For example, bene has a short e, while potere has a long e. Notice how crucial the difference is in some Proto-Romance words. The o in solu is short, but the o in solu is long. You can see that long mark, macron, above the long vowel. Sometimes a short mark is used above short vowels, but usually the vowels are written unmarked outside of educational materials. The length of a is trivial. The modern languages mostly have a whether the vowel was a long or short a in Latin, but the historical length of other vowels matters more often. Sometimes what were once just long and short versions of the same vowel are spelled quite differently in the modern Romance languages. For example, the verb potet, he can, with a short o, comes out as Spanish puede, French peut, Old Italian puote. Classical Latin used the vowel combinations ai and au, which tended to, but didn't always, merge with the vowels e and o. Here's the word pauku and some of its modern cognates. And this is the word quaestione, which was regularly pronounced questione in early Romance. Diphthongs also occur for short e and short o. Tenet, Spanish tiene, Italian tiene, French tient. Or potet, Spanish puede, French peut, Romanian poate. Most consonants are pronounced very much as they are in English, but pay attention to these ones. The stops written P, T, and C are unaspirated, so they're pronounced without that puff of air in or H sound that often accompanies them in English, so this word is pronounced patre, not patre. This is tu, not tu. And this one is kelu rather than kelu. Consider this an important note for English speakers. The U in gu and qu doesn't fall silent in Vulgar Latin, so lingua and lingue, or aqua and aquae, or quando instead of French quand and Romanian când. Late Latin speakers dropped their H's, so earlier Latin hora became Vulgar Latin ora. The letter R was trilled like Roma or tres. V was pronounced v, not w like it was in Classical Latin. Vinu. V later merges with B in a few languages, including Spanish, which has bino. Double consonants were pronounced long just as they still are in Italian. Flamma, illa. The letters C and G represented stops, casa and kelu, both with a k sound. Gusto and gente, both with a g sound. Eventually, C was softened before E and I, originally palatalized to something like kya, and eventually ts, ch, or s. Cielu, Spanish, cielo, Romanian, cer. The same thing happens to G or G before E and I, which comes to sound like J or J, and later H in Spanish. Gente, Portuguese, gente, Italian, gente, Spanish, gente. Uniquely, Sardinian doesn't do this, so G and C stay close to their original K and G sounds before E and I in Sardinian. Cielu, French, ciel, Sicilian, cielu, but Sardinian, celu. Q and G are examples of palatalization. Vulgar Latin consonants turn palatal by pronouncing a short y after the consonant and before another vowel. This Y sound is written with an I or sometimes a J. So N or N is palatalized in the word bagno. L gets palatalized in muliere. T is palatalized in gratia. This little Y sound has a lasting impact on later Romance words. For example, that palatalized T in gratia doesn't stay a T. Thanks to palatalization, that tia eventually becomes a s in French, grâce, ts in Italian, grazia, and th in Spanish, gracia. Palatal consonants don't always get treated the same either. Take the Proto-Romance word venho, which has the palatal ny sound. In Portuguese and Galician, this comes out as venho and benho, but Italian and Spanish have vengo and bengo, which no longer have palatal sounds. Romance consonants were sometimes softened between vowels, and this was routinely the case in Western Romance languages like French, Spanish, Catalan, Occitan, and Portuguese. This process, called lenition, explains why the final T in contato becomes voiced D in Portuguese contado, a the sound in Spanish contado, and disappears entirely in Caribbean Spanish contao. This is also how a single S comes to sound like Z between two vowels in many Romance languages aside from Spanish and Romanian. Casa, Italian, casa, Portuguese casa, but Romanian casa. Vulgar Latin and early Romance syllables often contain a vowel or a consonant plus a vowel. Pericolo. A single consonant may close a syllable, facto. Consonant clusters were also found, like pl in placet, or the scr in scripto. Most words had a prominent louder syllable, and this stressed syllable was typically the second to last one, like in muliere or casa. Sometimes it was the third to last syllable, like in prospero or pericolo. The other syllables were unstressed. Unstressed syllables were sometimes cut out. This happened at the end of words, particularly in Romanian, French, Occitan, Catalan, and Romansh. Prospero becomes French prosper, which lost its final syllable, and sale becomes Spanish sal without that final E. Sometimes the middle syllable was cut out. Pericolo was shortened to periclu, and later Spanish peligro. This has been but a rough sketch of Vulgar Latin and Romance pronunciation. It's meant to help you understand the pronunciation of words throughout the rest of this Grammar of Romance, but it's also a springboard for learning more about the pronunciation of Latin, of individual Romance languages, and of the historical sound changes that took place between them. Valete, and thanks for learning with me.